In 1968, a 13-year-old boy walked into a high school in Seattle. Most kids his age had never seen a computer. Most schools didn't have one, but this school did. That boy was Bill Gates. Gates himself estimates there were maybe a handful of teenagers in the entire world with that kind of access. Not because he was special, because he got lucky. And here's the part that hurts. Gates had a best friend at that school, Kent Evans. Just as smart, just as obsessed with computers. The kind of kid who might have co-founded Microsoft with him. Kent Evans died in a mountaineering accident during their senior year. 1 in a million opportunity, 1 in a million tragedy. That's chapter 2 of The Psychology of Money. Luck and risk are siblings, and they run the show far more than we'd like to believe. We love stories about self-made billionaires. We love the idea that if you just work hard enough, you'll make it. Effort matters. Skill matters. But Morgan Housel wants us to understand something uncomfortable. Nothing is as good or as bad as it seems. Every outcome is guided by forces we don't see and can't control. Bill Gates didn't choose to be born to wealthy parents who could send him to a school with a computer. Kent Evans didn't choose to die. Housel tells us, the line between inspiringly bold and foolishly risky is millimeters thin. And we only see where that line was after the fact. Think about Cornelius Vanderbilt. He ignored laws, took massive risks, we call him a visionary. Now think about Enron. They broke laws, took massive risks, we call them criminals. What's the real difference? One succeeded, one failed. We judge the action by the outcome. But the action was the same. The risk was the same. The only thing that changed was luck. When we study extreme success, we study the outliers. But here's the problem. When you study individual cases, you see only the extreme outcomes, and you miss the hidden role of luck. You see the winner. You don't see the 1,000 people who did the exact same thing and failed because of bad timing or a bad market. Housel says, don't study Bill Gates to learn how to be Bill Gates. Study the broad patterns that work for groups of people. Because when you only look at extreme successes, you walk away feeling invincible. You think, if I just do what they did, I'll get what they got. But you won't, because you can't replicate their luck. And when you see someone fail, it's easy to look down on them. Easy to say, they were reckless. They deserved it. But maybe they made the exact same decision as someone who got rich. Maybe they were just hit by a risk nobody saw coming. Housel warns us, be careful who you praise and admire. Be careful who you look down on. Be careful what you attribute to superior decision-making versus a lucky break. In 2006, a guy named Ronald Read died in Vermont. He was a janitor. He lived in a tiny house. Most people would have looked at him and thought, he's poor. He's unlucky. When his estate was settled, they found something shocking. Ronald Read had $8 million in the bank. He'd quietly invested in blue-chip stocks for decades. Now, was he a genius? Maybe. But he also lived in the right country, during the right century, in the right economy. And on the flip side, think about someone who invested everything in 2007, right before the crash. Same strategy, same patience, but their timing was off by a year. They look like a fool. The line between genius and fool? Millimeters. And we draw it in hindsight. So what do we do? Housel isn't saying effort doesn't matter. He's saying, we need intellectual humility. When you succeed, don't assume it's all you. Acknowledge the tailwinds, the lucky break. It keeps you grounded. When you see someone fail, ask, what risks hit them that I can't see? It builds empathy, and it protects you from overconfidence. Focus on broad principles, not individual heroes. Don't ask, what did Warren Buffett do? Ask, what do top investors do consistently? Because here's the truth. You can't control luck, but you can control your humility. You can control your perspective. Morgan Housel ends this chapter with a simple sentence. Nothing is as good or as bad as it seems. The billionaire isn't as purely brilliant as the story makes him sound. The bankrupt janitor isn't as purely foolish as the headline makes him look. Luck and risk are siblings. They sit at every table. And the sooner we admit they're there, the wiser our money decisions become. Thanks for watching. If this resonated, let me know which chapter you'd like to see next.